Okay, here we are. Our sample today looks like this. This is the finished. And of course, in the end, I'm going to make a suggestion of many other different ingredients that can be easily gotten or from your yard even, or from the craft store, and additional things to decorate with. So once again, in your kit, you will have that wreath base. You will have the wire for a hanger. You will have this little 4.5 inch, 4-inch tab. This is very important. It is your measuring tool. You'll be using this throughout the class today. Plug your glue gun in. Make sure it's getting hot. Have extra glue on hand, and get your clippers. And you're going to find in your kit probably a plastic bag full of assorted evergreens. You're going to find a tissue paper that has your herbs in it that look sort of like this. They're very light and airy. And you're going to find some hydrangea in there. And then you're also going to find another tissue that has decorative, colorful items in it. Okay, so we're going to move those aside now, and I'm going to walk you through the process. We're going to move this aside right now. The first thing I'd like for you to do is to get your hydrangea, regardless of whether it's in several bits or all in one clump. You're going to take this plant mister and dampen them. Set them aside, and then you're going to take the plant mister, and you're going to liberally spritz all your herb base building material, the light airy things, not the flowers, and set them aside. Okay, set that water mister aside. I'm going to demonstrate. This is what we're going to be doing first. We're going to be building a base out of the dried herbs that we just dampened over here. And this is going to become the armature or the base for anchoring in our evergreens. This is our measuring tool, and everything that you glue in, herbs and evergreens, are going to be this length. This is what creates a round, even wreath. And also, importantly, to make note of, you may want to make a larger wreath and think that you can put larger pieces of evergreen. These are kind of heavy compared to the dried flowers. And the use of hot glue in this project works well with pieces that are this big. If you're going to go bigger, you need to begin to wire in or wire to your frame. The glue will not hold pieces of evergreen that are larger than what our project is designed for today. I'm going to bring over what the next step will look like when we add the evergreens. You can see the herbs are popping through here. So obviously when we are making our herb base, it's not really going to matter how it looks, because obviously they get kind of lost in amongst the beautiful, beautiful evergreens. Okay, so let's set those aside and bring over our vine base. So we're going to take our wire, that big long piece of floral wire. It's about 18 inches long, and we're making a hanger. And quite simply, it's just putting the wire through the middle of your wreath here, and you're going to twisty tie the two ends together. I'm not going to do it up at the top though, because that makes a very, very large hanger. So I'm going to go about halfway down, and I'm just going to twist these together a couple of times around, and then turn that twist in to the inside of the wreath, and you have a loop up here. Just give that a little twist also. And voila, we have a hanger. Okay, so you can snip those little wires inside the wreath or just hide them. So I'm going to set this aside over here, and I'm going to bring my dampened herb tissue packet over here, and I'm going to get my measuring tool. This is what you're going to spend a good deal of the project doing. The evergreens and the decorating go very quickly. The base building is a little more time consuming. So just take a deep breath, relax, enjoy. Don't try to hurry through this. You have this video to go back, and if you miss something, notice I am measuring. I started at the top of my ingredient like that, and I'm not even using the scissors because you can really damage the use of your greens. If I took this and measured it and then just took my scissors and went like this, I'm losing a lot of very valuable material. So you may think, oh, it's so small and so tiny, it's going to take me forever, but you get to really enjoy and appreciate this project and appreciate the beautiful ingredients that you get to make this project with. Now, yes, hopefully you will learn through this project how to do this, and then go incorporate your own ingredients. You don't have to use the ingredients that I've provided for you. You have learned that, you will have learned anyhow, that there's a plethora of assorted things out in your yard, maybe on your walks with the dog or walks around the neighborhood. There's an abandoned or there's an overgrown lot. There's things along the beach. Nature is amazing. There is so much out there in your yard, even in the middle of the winter. There are pods and nuts, and I just encourage you, when you walk, whether you gather or not, that you at least observe that there's so much out there to play with, or at least even appreciate. Notice I always kind of start from the top of whatever this is, and notice when I'm done, there's really nothing left. Sometimes I can break down off the main stem, but sometimes I have to, in this case, I'm going to start at the top, the highest point, put that measuring tool there, and if you have to cut, it just makes it trickier to have your measuring and your hands. Be careful. Find something with a cutting tool with a point on it, maybe, and see, if I was just to go in here and hack on that, some will be too short, some will be too long. It really pays to have them all be approximately the same length. So go ahead and cut your pile. Cut everybody. You know why? Because you're going to have to use all of it, and it only adds to the thickness and abundance of your wreath. And I know that you're not going to want to come back and do this, so you might as well do it all in the very beginning. And the worst case is you have enough and you get to throw away or save for your next wreath. Okay. I am measuring. Notice how I'm holding it in my hand like this and snapping them. So I'm getting an approximate measurement. Okay. So see this piece here? If you can, it's kind of delicate. Always start up at the top. And you can you're not just taking the tips. That's the benefit of carefully breaking them instead of taking your scissors and cutting them to the point that you only use the tips. If you only use the tips of all of these herbs that are provided in your kit, you are going to end up with not enough material. Okay, so I'm going to call that enough for now for this project. And I'm going to get rid of my tissue and set that aside. So here we are. We'll set the measuring tool aside here. We're going to bring over our wreath. So this is where you bring in the glue gun. It's hot at this point, and you may want to take several. How about two? Let's stick with two. You can bundle two together. If you happen to have really thick ones already, these are pretty thin. If you have pretty thick ones, maybe you just want to do one at a time. But if you have thin ones like this, what you're going to do is carefully put, not a lot, but a little glue on there. And you're going to decide at this time, do I want this to spin counterclockwise or do I want it to spin clockwise? It does not matter. All that matters is that the rest of the wreath spins the same way, the direction that you establish with your first pieces. Okay, so I am going to go around the wreath quickly by placing these sort of in or attached to this wreath base with hot glue. I'm going to go around, I'll show you what I mean, right on top of the wreath. I'm not veering out and I'm not veering in yet. So let's do the next one. I'm going to bundle two pieces together, make sure that the tips are lined up closely like that. And remember that direction. I almost put it in that way, but I chose to put them in so that they are spinning. The tips are pointing in a clockwise position. So I'm kind of attaching those in. I did slide them in a little bit. They don't have to go in far. Remember, this is hot glue. It hardens very quickly. Here's two pieces. And there's no need to use gobs of glue, and you really just need to make sure. And a good way to make sure is give them all a little gentle tug back and make sure they attach to something, because this is what your evergreens are going to get glued into. So 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 9 bundles I'm going to get around that whole wreath. So this is a building process, building and building, and I'm going to talk you through it and reinforce right now in the video here how to go about this. And then I am going to bring in my already made base, but you are going to continue on building your base. Otherwise, the video would be about 3 hours long. So we want to, for the sake of getting you the information on how to do it, I bundled 4 together there because you see it makes a very nice fan. You don't want too bulky though. Remember, be very mindful of that. So this is funny because you may want to reverse when you get over here. Don't. Keep yourself in check here with that direction, that the ends of your pieces are pointing in a clockwise position or counterclockwise if that's how you started. Okay, so once again, I'm lining up. We're using all the ingredients. We're mixing them. We're doing a mixture. So here we go. A little glue. You can spin this as you're working with it too if it's easier to access that direction. You see, I spun that now, and that we will, when you're decorating, you will want to know where your top and bottom are on the wreath. But when you, I'm out of glue. So I have these super duper long glue sticks. You may actually have some shorter ones. You may even have a smaller glue gun, which is all fine. Glue is glue. I prefer the hot glue because I think it makes a better bond than the cooler glue. I've tried it. It just doesn't work as well, in my opinion. So you may have, I'm going to talk about some of the ingredients here. You may have some color or it may just be natural. No matter what, it's going to end up being lovely. So in here we have what I'm using in this bundle primarily is something called pepper cress. It actually can be put in a salad and has a peppery taste to it. And then I added one little bundle here of mugwort. Whenever I think of mugwort, it is a wild foraged herb. It has wonderful medicinal qualities. You can look that up. And it just is so pretty. It grows everywhere. It's so pretty. So is the penny cress. Penny cress, mugwort, they both grow in the wild. And both are either edible or medicinal. And I find them to be delightful in decorative applications. Okay, so I made it all the way around quickly. Lots of empty spaces, right? So you're going to continue to go around again and again and again, building your little bouquet here, lining up all those little stems at the bottom here, like that. You may even want to take the clippers if they're not even and snip them so they are. Get that glue on there, not too much so that it drips. And we're once again we're going to put some going in around the wreath and some going out. What I mean is, so now, sort of in between the bundles that we did before, that one just tilts in a little. You don't want to have them so far in that you lose your hole, though. You might want to use this as a centerpiece and put a pillar candle, a fake one, of course, in the middle. So here we are, continuing to build our wreath going in. I'm going to do the ins first. You can mix them. You can do in, then out. I just did 2 ins. So they're going in a little bit. Now I'll do an out. Mix these little guys together. You can make a fan. You can trim them so that all the little stems are all lined up. Put a little glue on there. I have this wonderful tool that I get online. It is called a hot glue pot. Okay, so I'm going to take a break from that hot glue pot for a second and out. This one is going out a little bit. Hot glue pot. Go ahead and Google that, and you can melt glue sticks or special glue pillows into this little tiny skillet. And it's just a pot, a tiny little pot or reservoir where you have hot glue. Imagine. It makes this project such a breeze because you can take these little stems and you can dip them right into the pot and stick. How is that? That's amazing. So, get some glue on there. And we're going to do an out. So I want to show you a little trick about I can use my monitor here in the dried flower studio to look at my wreath and see, oh boy, I really need to add some in here and here. How about right up here too? This is starting to look really good here, but I need a little more work around the bend. A good way for you at home to do this is to put it on the floor and stand over top of it and look down. The same thing. It gives you that perspective that you need to see your wreath differently instead of right up in your face. Okay, so we're going around again, doing the in pieces and the out pieces. So we're thickening our base. I'm going to jump over to my already made one in 1 second, and you've got the idea here. It's just work in progress, and just be patient. Make sure all these pieces stick in. Give them a little tug. If they haven't stuck, definitely So you can see this obviously needs more work, but this is what we are planning to achieve. You can see. So if I was to add more, you can see this whole side from here right up to here could use a few more pieces. This is not that important. It's good, but it's not that important. You can, at this point, because you're probably sick and tired of adding more pieces, I'm just going to slide some in there to take care of that piece. But clearly, this is a bit thinner. Let's see if I can grab another piece of this mugwort. 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches. And just quickly put in a few more pieces over on this side to even it out and make it maybe one more right here. One more little bunch. It's going to get easier to put your pieces in at this point because you're building a core. You're building a mass to actually glue things to. So the next step is going to be set your base aside. We're going to use the evergreens. Find your measuring tool. The same thing happens here. Start at the tip of whatever ingredient. You are going to need your scissors at this point and clip. And if you clip carefully, you can go down the next one. So once again, using just tips you won't have enough evergreen if you use all just tips. You need to trim down all the evergreens carefully that have been put into your kit, and try to utilize as much as possible with minimal waste. So if we're able to get rid of this by cutting it on an angle like that, you can even use that. It's a little long, so maybe we'll trim it down there. That's even a useful piece. Look, I used almost that entire piece. So that was arborvitae. I love arborvitae because it holds paint really well. And you may want to consider getting a can of gold or silver paint, whatever your preference be, that you can paint these silver or gold. You don't have to coat them completely, just a dusting, maybe the silver, but the gold, just a dusting and letting the green show through is very, very nice. Okay, where's my measuring tool? This is cedar. Once again, carefully cut. Start up at the highest point on the stem and clip. And if you clip carefully, you're going to get, start up here again. And look, I think I still can get one more piece off of this. Very good. 2. That's going to be what's left. That's what you should really be looking at as discard. Okay? This is actually cedar with berries on it. If you're lucky, you may get some of that in your kit, but maybe not. But maybe you know where in your yard or around the neighborhood, with permission, of course, to snip a few evergreens from the neighbors. Once again, this is another type of arborvitae. This grows in my yard. I love it. It's more lacy than the first arborvitae I showed you. I like to start up at the very top again and cut back. My arborvitae has these interesting little berries, but you know, they're just going to get lost. Just like the base that you spent an hour working on to build with the herbs, these evergreens are going to come in and almost hide them completely. They're going to pop out and just look. They're an anchor for the evergreens, first of all. That's their purpose. And second of all, they do come out a little bit, and they do look lovely. I hope you get as excited about some of these really great ingredients. So clean this right up. This is a big piece, and for the sake of moving along, I'm going to set it aside and come back to it if I need it. This is Leland cypress. Grows in everybody's yard. It's a very fast growing evergreen, so it's very popular. Apparently the deer don't eat it, so a lot of people have it on there. It's a great fast growing privacy evergreen. So once again, use that measuring tool and stick to the right size. Don't get too big. And maybe even when you're gluing them on, keep your measuring tool handy. Okay, so it's clearly the stem is getting very thick and it's getting very hard to get down here. And these pieces are too short. But if I go down a little further, I do have larger pieces. So I'm working on cleaning this right up. Carefully cutting. And looks like many of these are too short, so I think it would be okay to discard something like this. It will be. There's not much on it that you can use. This stem is pretty thick. Okay, this was the same thing as the arborvitae from my yard, so I had a duplicate. Ooh, this is lovely. So another great place, my town here in Southampton, good old Southampton, won't let me go to the dump and pick the brush pile, but East Hampton will. And maybe the roadside, somebody's cleaned their evergreens. Well, I found this in a brush pile. This is a miniature Hinoki cypress. How delicious is that? I just love the texture. You're going to really be appreciating the different evergreens that are available. And also, you know that a good garden center or, who is it, Lowe's or Home Depot, during the holiday, like right around Thanksgiving time, the evergreens start to show up. And you can certainly go buy evergreens too. They are available. Okay, I got a nice pile. Oh, one more thing. This is blue spruce. It's a little bushy for our project, but a couple of pieces in there, and they don't have to be the 4-inch. I'm just clipping, but I don't want them to be any longer. A few pieces are going to be very nice in our project, so I think that would be garbage. Okay, keep your measuring tool on hand. Right there. I put mine right there. And bring your, so we're aiming to look like this. And all these greens are stuck in. And they're all snipped to this length. And here's what your base should look like. Okay. We're going to start. You may want to clean off a little stem. Just pull off some of the greens around the very bottom to make way. Put some glue on it. It's basically the same thing. You do want to pull back your herb base a little bit so that you don't not pushing them in and the glue slides in and then it gets on your hand. So you do want to make way. If you have some thin pieces, you may combine them like we did with the herbs, but you don't want to make it too bulky because you really don't want to miss gluing, at least for the beginning. So slide that in. So you want this to become not only in contact with your vine base, but you also want it to maybe even the base, the herb base is partly why we spent all that energy. It's connecting to those as well. So this is a thin piece, so maybe I'll find a second thin piece. And once again, you want to clean maybe off the bottoms of the stem a little bit, just a tiny bit. And you can put the two together as long as the stems line up. Put the glue on them. Now notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to do that placement again. And these pieces are right on top of the wreath. The next time around, you can do some curling into the wreath and some curling out. The ones curling into the wreath, it's not something you have to think too hard about, but you may want to make them a tiny bit shorter, if you think of it. Because it's smaller in here. And out here is a little longer. So just think about that. If you do it, you do it. If it looks like your inside is closing in and you have no room, no hole, um, no center, then you definitely will want to pay attention. And it's not advisable to take the scissors and snip the tips because it will show and it will look like they were snipped. Okay, this should be coming very easier because it's filling in, and you can see how I am for the most part. No, see that piece I would put in all by itself because it's so big and generous. Okay, what did I say? Pull that back a little bit, make way, make sure it connects to something. Here we go. Two pieces, make sure that they're nice and together there. And this part will start, the whole process is going to start to speed up now. And the wreath is really going to start looking beautiful. It's going to start looking like something at this point. Okay, make sure they connect somehow, somewhere. And you'll want to go back and tug on them to just be sure. Okay, so I'm actually going to up it to 3 pieces, but use your discretion. Keep it small. Don't try to make big, gigantic clumps of evergreen at this point because it will show up. It will show in your final wreath, and you'll go, oh, I don't know why it's so full there and not over on the other side, because maybe you bundled your greens too much. So just keep it to 1 or 2, and if they're really small pieces, 3. Ta-da! Look, first time around, and it looks really looking beautiful. So as I said, the next time around, you're going to stick some on the inside, and I will demonstrate that, and some on the outside. And on the inside, what you may want to do, besides cleaning your stems, is just take a little bit off so you don't lose the hole in the middle there. Okay, I'm going to make way, pull that back, and I'm nestling it in there, making sure it connects to something, and it is coming into the wreath a little bit. So the next one I'm going to do, see, remember that was the one that had the little berries on it? It's not even going to show. It's a shame, but get some glue on that, make way, and this one is going to the outside. It's not poking straight off like a clock, a hand on a clock. It is on a gentle outward angle. Okay, this is a nice big hefty piece here, and it has a bit of a bend to it. So I might flip it over and make that. This is going to be, what will I do? I'll do in. No, I'll do out. I see a big out. Okay. It went out gently, 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 gently. Okay, here's how you're going to use your spruce. They are going to be an after effect. Since I already did this area in and out, I'm going to show you how to use the spruce. It's just going to get kind of like the decorative part here. Okay. 1, 2. And I am going to reach for my already greened wreath while you continue to go in and out and build. And always remember to put this down on the ground and look at it from above to see where you might need to add more. Okay. Magic. Watch this. Oh my goodness, I work so fast. Look at that. This is what your wreath is going to look like. So you can see it's much fuller over here and thinner over here. This is what you are going to see when you put it down on the ground and look at it from above. So what do? You thicken it. You add in that area, maybe some on the inside, maybe some on the outside. Remembering that measuring tool is really important because you don't want to make a wreath that's really long. The pieces were very long over here and not over here. So I'm going to remind you also here at this time, this wreath is designed to make with glue and dried flowers. If you want a larger wreath, you'll need to go to the more traditional practices of using wire and wiring your evergreens to a frame. Or you could even just go buy one, buy a already made base of evergreens at your grocery store or the garden center or something like that. You can see what I just added a few more pieces and boom, it looks great. Maybe a couple more here, one here maybe. Um, you can buy a pre-made base and then just go out in your yard and pick some berries and spray them gold, or I can't talk, pods or cones, and spray them with a little bit of gold, and voila. So it's as simple as that. You don't have to go through the whole making of this process here. But this is a handmade wreath here. Okay, here we are. We're at decorating time. What you want to do is find your hanger. I guess I put one on here. Maybe not. Okay, maybe I didn't put one on this wreath. So I'm going to find my hanger. I'm going to make that the top. And now I'm going to decorate. So you're going to come over here to your tissue that has all the decorative. And you may have different ingredients than I have here, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to cover pretty much everything. You will probably have a whole clump. Your hydrangea is nice and dampened at this point, so it's not going, you can pull it apart and make it into smaller pieces, and small is the key here. We definitely want small pieces on this wreath. This is not a big wreath. So these, you can mash these around now that they're nice and damp. That's the great thing. You may want to take that water and grab hold of your flowers and give them a little dampening as well, and let them sit a few minutes before you use them, and they will not fall apart. Okay, so we're gonna start with the hydrangea. We're not doing any gluing yet. We're just doing a placement. Oh, by the way, there was in this base, you see there was some boxwood, and boxwood looks like that. So you'll get greens similar to what you see in this video, maybe a little different. So when you're doing this placement, you're nestling. You want to think about things not shooting out beyond the wreath in. I'm going to bring the sample over again. And also organically growing out of the wreath like they grew out of the wreath is what the goal we're looking for. So right now we're just working with our hydrangea. Thought I had a little more of it. You're going to break it into 3 tiny pieces, and you're going to do odd numbers are ideally the nicest on a wreath. So that could mean 3s or 5s on this size wreath. If you had a gigantic wreath, you could go much larger. Let's see, I lost some of my hydrangeas, so I'm going to dampen some more here. You may have a burgundy hydrangea. You may have a pale creamy hydrangea in your kit. Either one. And once again, remember that a can of spray paint is always good if you want to alter the color. And you don't have to really kill it with color. You can just dust it with color, and that's all that's needed. So if you get the creamy hydrangea and you want the burgundy ones, you can get yourself a little can of spray paint at the craft store. They make a paint for flowers, which is great. Okay, 1, 2, 3, placed. So the next thing you want to do is you'll probably have some spike celosia, and you will probably have, I had a box lined up to bring to the studio, and You'll probably have some of the crested celosia, my favorite. These are my favorites. So we're just doing a layout, but remember nestling. We're not just laying these on top. I'm going to show you what works to lay on top, but it's not quite yet. You don't need much stem, and when you handle these, that's why we dampen them. If you're going to put your fingers on them, very gentle, very gentle. Try to avoid putting your fingers on them if you can, but that's kind of impossible when you need to nestle them in here like this, and then you're going to have to grab them again to glue them. You'll probably have some eucalyptus leaves. Take the stem right off. Stems are not your friends, that's my saying. Some of you that have done classes with me before have heard that one. This is also a spike celosia, but it's a creamy white one, which is very pretty in a holiday wreath. So notice, I am breaking these down carefully. That we're not using the measuring tool anymore, but we are making them very short. And we're just, glue is in the way, we're nestling them into place. So I told you about the arborvitae with paint on it, with gold and silver. Well, this is arborvitae with a little bit of sort of a pinkish fuchsia red, but it's so pretty. What else do we have here? You probably will also get some anise hyssop. You want to be sure, because this tends to be a very elongated flower. You may want to, can't find my clippers, trim this carefully down, and when you handle this also, don't squeeze it. And so when you get to the point that you're really liking what your wreath looks like, and you can always add more, but if you're liking, here's a little white flowers in here, you can begin to glue your flowers into your wreath. So once again, use that stand over top of it and look where you might want to add things, sticking to that triangle in most cases, but so I put one here of the eucalyptus. I'm going to slide one in there, and if I can find another one, you'll probably get pine cones of some sort. And once again, don't just glue them right on top of your wreath like that. Put a little glue on them, and well, you're doing a layout right now. You're going to nestle them in there. Try to avoid that gluing things right on top of your wreath. To me, as a designer, that looks kind of glued on top. It looks so good to me. But this is your wreath, and if you think it looks good, I always encourage that. Okay, I'm getting to the point that I really like what my wreath is looking like. If you have any of these green leaves, once again, one leaf at a time. Nothing big. It's all small, and even, smaller than your measuring tool, because at this point it's going to be very difficult to get down into that wreath base. All you need to be doing is just connecting it to the evergreens and the herbs. You may get some hot peppers. These are hot peppers from my garden. They're cayenne. They are edible if you want, but if you break them open for any reason, you want to be sure to wash your hands after you use them, because they are hot. In this, right, just like this, unbroken, they're not going to hurt you. But I'd still wash your hands after using them. So we're going to demonstrate gluing and then additional ingredients that you may want to purchase or go out in your yard and find. So start in one place and systematically glue everything as you go. So pull this out, put a little glue, slide it back in so that it connects with something. Remember, it does become permanent. Pull this out, put a little glue in there, slide it back in. This does become permanent, but you can always be adding to your wreath as well. See, I flip this leaf over and the bottom. I'm grabbing hold of this. Hopefully it's damp, and you can give it a little bit of pressure. You don't want to break it. I love this white. This is so pretty. I hope you all get some of this white in your kit. Something creamy anyhow, whether it be hydrangea. Okay, so you're getting the idea. Pull it out a little bit and put it back in. Notice that it has no stem. Stems are not necessary here because what you're gluing in is just connecting with the evergreens and the herb base that you spent all that time building. Once again, here we are at hydrangea time. I'm just kind of pulling that back, squeezing a little glue inside there. Once again, and remember, nestle, nestle, nestle. You're nestling these, not gluing them on top of your wreath. Okay, you get the idea. I'm not going to complete this, but I will work my way around the whole thing. I want you to appreciate bark with lichen on it. What a beautiful thing. And it's everywhere. Many trees have lichen, and it's such a pretty color. Imagine putting some pieces of bark into your wreath. There's all kinds of textures of bark. There's birch bark, there's oak, there's all kinds. How about some seashells? Putting some seashells, small, keep them small, most likely, into your wreath. Give yourself a little seashore theme by putting those in there. There is all kinds of pods. These have a little gold on them. This is a weed. Can't tell you what it is, but I just love the texture of it. And this is from the butterfly bush. If you have a butterfly bush in your yard, not the butterfly weed, the butterfly bush, you're going to have some kind of afterpod and a little bit of gold. There's all kinds of pine cones. Once again, remembering that you can spray some of your evergreens with a little bit of gold or silver. How about milkweed pods? I love these things. After they've exploded, they smell so good as a flower. The bees love them in the summertime, and a little bit of gold into the pocket of them, and they're really pretty to add to your wreath. Look at that. These are all things you can go out in your yard and find. These are gumballs. Now, if you were using these and you wanted them to last a really long time, you would maybe want to soak them in a little shellac or poly, sort of like when you get cattails. They could explode through into the future, but this wreath is not intended to last years. It's really intended to get you through the holidays. This is a little large, but this is so lovely too. I gather these, they're magnolia pods. I also have somewhere magnolia leaves, and the magnolia leaf has a suede backside. I don't seem to see any handy here. How about some dried herbs? If you're an herb enthusiast, you should be out there gathering some of your herbs before they freeze up. This is rosemary. All kinds of foliage can get sprayed with a little bit of gold on it. Here's some local scallop shells that would look lovely in your wreath. How about going to Michael's and buying a bunch of artificial things? Berries, little apples. This pod here is from your marshmallow hibiscus that grows in your yard, that big floppy flower you see either on the seashore or in people's yards. What else do I have here? All kinds of things. There's just so many beautiful things to harvest. You might want to get yourself some really pretty ribbon. I love the color of this satin burgundy ribbon, and tie yourself a little bow. And because there's French wire in this, you can poof it up. And when I set my bow, I like to go either sort of at 1:30 on the clock, 4:30 on the clock, 7:30, or 10:30. So on the four corners. You can go straight up if you want, like that, or you can put it down at the bottom. But I tend to be one of these catty corner kind of artists that likes to do that with my furniture in the house. Everything kind of has an angle to it. So what about, remember how I said you don't want things to be too long, you're nestling them in? What if you want to make a flourish? How about a feather? And a flourish means it goes right across, and this is going to be set right on top. So you might want to get yourself a feather and do all kinds of enhancements off of that. Let's see if I can pull this out. This is what a magnolia pod looks like. Pod, and the flip side with the leaf. I love that suede color. It's so pretty. Once again, in order for it, because it's so long, you may want to trim that down. Okay, so happy holidays, everybody, and enjoy your beautiful, beautiful wreath. You can hang this outdoors. Just don't hang it out in the rain, because obviously all these beautiful decorations, the dried ones anyhow, aren't going to like that very much. So covered, protected, or indoors. And as a centerpiece, you could make it a centerpiece on a dining room table. I would put it on a platter because it's going to dry out. So you'll be able to use this throughout the holidays, and then continue to enjoy it. So this is fresh today, but this one I made 2 weeks ago. Yes, it's looking a little dried out, but it still looks beautiful. And you know what? You can always carefully add in more fresh greens as it ages. So there's all kinds of tricks. And I'll see you soon. And thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.